Welcome to the Quarter Millennial Quilt Sew Along. I'm Teresa Coates, and today we're going to be doing the block for Wisconsin. So I've got all of my pieces ready to go. I've got my pattern here to work from, and I have all of the pieces cut the way that they're supposed to be. So we have two different sizes of stripes. They're both the same length, and then we have these little short guys. And we're going to put these together in rows so that we can do some strip piecing. So I want to put these together like this. Okay, so we're going to sew this strip together, and then we're going to sew this strip together. Overlap those a little differently so we can see. Okay, and then these are going to get sewn together. Then these and another set just like it. All right, so I'm just going to piece these together into strips using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm going to sew this with the white one on top so I can see that dark underneath and make sure that these edges stay even as I sew that 1/4 inch seam. All right, so now I've got all of my sections sewn together here. So I have a blue, white, blue, and a white, blue, white, and then I've got my smaller sections here. All right, you'll notice that the center sections on all of these is a little bit smaller, and the reason why we made the outsides a little bigger is to give us some trim space. So when we put this together, we can make sure to have enough space to trim this down to the right size and not expect us to get it right the very first time. So what we're going to do now is press these. We're going to press them this time to the dark side. Normally I like to press things open. We're going to press them to the dark side this time because we're going to be nesting a lot of seams, and then we can spin those seams and get it to lay really flat. So nesting the seams will get us better joins. All right, so let me get the iron set up and we'll go ahead and press these. I'm going to start with my little guys here first because they're a little easier to manipulate. So one of the things I would suggest is that you go ahead and press your seams on this one. We're going to set our seams is what this is often called. It's just going to kind of help them lay the way that they're supposed to. So I want to push this all toward the blue. One of the things that happens when we like push toward a fabric is that you end up with this ridge. And so we want to make sure that this is getting open as well as we can. Okay, so one of the things that you can do is kind of come back over here and press it again from this side, and then we'll press it down. And this will just help open this up. We found when we were testing this out that pressing makes a huge difference in your finish. So I want this block or this strip to be really nice and even, and it to not have any sort of a ridge right there. So again, I'll do the same thing. And I'm just going to press this from both sides again. Okay, and here I can kind of pull this over just a little. And I'm going to try that from this side too. See if I can get a little bit of pressure on there. And then from this side I can kind of press the seams again. So it really is just kind of a press thing, and then we're pressing to the dark side. So it's a matter of trying to get that to lay as flat as possible and to not have any sort of a ridge. That's what we're going for there. All right, so I'm going to put those there. I'm going to get my little clapper and put that on there. See if I can get those to lay a little bit flatter. All right, and then I'm going to do my longer strips here. And the longer strips are the same thing, just a little bit longer. So this makes them a little harder to get them perfectly straight, but we're just going to do our best. Let's see what we can manage. So again, pressing the seams, setting them. And then I'll try to open them up. This needs the longer clapper. All right, we'll let that cool. So we really want to set those folds in there really nicely because this will help as we continue to sew. All right, we're going to start with this one here. And I'm going to cut a bunch of strips. I want to even up an end, and then I'm going to start cutting my strips. What I really want to do is make sure that this is staying even. So I'm going to use this line of my ruler to make sure that that's even. Okay, and then I can start cutting my strips. So I can cut strips individually, or I can cut the wider amount and then cut them down. And this works really well to keep some consistency. So I've doubled the size of my strip. I'll cut it once and then cut it again. Okay, so it's just one way to start getting strips that are the right size. Let me do that again here. Okay, so we've got 4. And I need 3 more. All right. So now I've got my strips of that one. So we'll cut the other ones as well. So this is our ABA strip, and this will be our BAB strip, is what that is. So when you're looking, that's what that means. All right, so now we're going to cut this one. Again, we straighten up an end. And then I can cut these. All right, and then I cut a couple of bigger strips. All right, so there's all of those. And then on these, we're going to trim these down just a little bit. I'm going to trim one end even. And then we're going to put these aside, and I'm just going to trim the end. So we're going to come back and trim these to fit later. I just want to get it started here. Okay, so now I've got those trimmed, ready to do later. So now we're going to put our 9 patches together. So these are going to go like this. And I find that laying them out helps to get this to go together a little bit better. I don't get too lost. Okay. There we go. So we've got 4 of these 9 patches that we're going to do, and we're going to put these on. These go on the corner of the block. Okay, so we're going to piece these together. We're going to nest these seams. All right, so we want to put those folds together and make sure that they fit. Now I have 2 options here, and I can pin these, or I can kind of manipulate it as we go. So I'm going to show you how I do that. We're going to sew these together. And again, this middle strip is slightly shorter than this outside strip, and that's the way it's supposed to be, okay? So we're gonna start, I'm gonna sew up to here, I'm gonna pinch this, make sure that it's in the right place, and then I'll show you how to manipulate it and make sure that this one stays where it's gonna be. All right, so I'm gonna put this under here. I've just got this kind of pinched underneath my finger, and I can feel how flat it is. Okay, so I know that's in the right spot. Put this under here at my 1/4 inch. I'll take some stitches and I just kind of keep my hand on this and make sure that that stays nice and flat. And then as we get up here and it's caught, I can go ahead under here, make sure that these are nesting properly too. And if I need to move things, I can stretch this top one just the tiniest bit so that it will fit right in there. Put my finger down, hold it. And there we go. So I'm going to do all of the first rows of those 4 patches at the same time here. So I'll just nest them together, get it nice and even. And you are welcome to pin these. That is not a problem. You can absolutely pin them. Okay, so just kind of keep the finger on it. You can really kind of tell if it starts to double up, and that's the point. So I'm going to push that to that side. Again, make sure those match. I'll do that with the other two. So now that I've got these all stitched, I'm going to trim them apart. Just clip them, and then we'll add the next row. All right, so this is what we've got so far. These little pairs like this. You can see how nicely the seams nested in there by doing that little pinch method. All right, we're going to do the same thing over here, but before we do that, I'm going to spin these seams. All right, so I've stitched all of this with a 2.0 millimeter stitch length. All right, and I didn't back stitch. So all I do is I kind of just push this over and I kind of give it a little pinch. This is going to help as I sew that next row on. Okay, so I'm going to do that with all of these real quick. Okay, so all I'm doing is kind of just popping those seams apart. I give it a good pinch in the middle there. Try to get that to be nice and flat. And like I said, this will make it easier. So when we add that other layer on, sometimes that can become a little bit difficult and squirrely because these want to pinch back together. So we're kind of getting that set up. So it's not going to happen. Right? Plus it's kind of fun when you get this little 4 patch back there. All right, so now we're going to sew this onto here. Okay, so we're going to do this the exact same way that we did before. And I'm just going to pinch them, get them started, pinch them again. Move this stuff over the sewing machine. Let's sew it. Wondering why it wouldn't nest. It's because I put it on the wrong side. All right, cut these apart. Then we can do the same thing. We should have these little 9 patches. All right, push those in the back. So you can see we'll end up with 4 of these little 4 patches. But what this helps is it will lay a lot flatter. When you don't spin those seams, they get really thick right here. So we're avoiding that. So I'm going to put these here. After I finger press these, we're going to take them and iron them so that they stay really nice. All right, so let's press these. All right, so we're gonna press these again. I'm gonna be very careful about trying to get those to go the direction I want them to. Make sure everything is pressed as open as possible. All right, so these should be even. So this is the thing to look for, is to make sure that these lines go out straight and these lines go out straight. All right, and you might need to kind of repress things just a little bit to make sure that that happens. All right, so I'm just gonna keep doing this. Make sure that it's going the way it's supposed to on the back. Okay. All right, so this is what it'll look like from the other side. All right, now we've got all of those done and we're ready to assemble the block. All right, so now we have all of these done. So we've got our 4 corners. So basically it's gonna end up like this. But if you remember, I told you we made the sides here a little bit bigger so we'd have some trim down. So we're gonna trim down 2 sides on each of these blocks so that when we sew those together, those will be nice and neat, and then this outside we'll be able to trim up at the end and make sure it's the right side for the full block, okay? So each of these are gonna be trimmed the same. We're just gonna lay them out differently. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure, and this is where we get to be careful about our measuring. I'm gonna measure 1 1/8 inch from this edge. So this is for our side right here. And I'm gonna trim this off, okay? This part in the middle here should be 7/8. So when I look at this, the line should come down here, and then it should be the 1 1/8 inch over here, all right? So we're gonna trim this, and I'm gonna do this just on all 4 of them. So you can kind of keep track of it and not lose track of our numbers and where we're at, okay? So I'm really looking at 2 things, my 1/8 inch there and my 2 inch line there. All right, and in the pattern, it'll tell you to just trim up these blocks, but this is kind of a little secret to make it a bit easier if you're watching the video with me. Okay, so now, toss my little scraps here. Now we'll trim from the other side. So I'm going to trim from one, it'll be the top or the bottom on them. And this one is going to be 1.5 inches from this seam line, okay? Because this is going to end up getting trimmed again over here. All right, so I'm just going to measure that. Okay. And then I'm going to put that here. So this is our trimmed edge and this is our trimmed edge. Okay, so now this is a trim and this is a trim, so it's going to go up there. Okay, and on this one you can kind of do a little double check with your straight line there and make sure that it's even. Okay, so it's always good to kind of check out 2 places. All right, so now we've got this one and this one trimmed, so it's going to go here. And one more. All right. Oh, wait, did I do that one wrong? Okay, so putting these down, I realized that I should have trimmed 2 of them on the other end. So this end and this end need to be trimmed on this one and not these ends. So when I trimmed I trimmed this side off of all of them. That was fine because this can rotate around. But then when I trimmed the end, I would need to trim 2 of them on this end and 2 of them on this end. So I'm going to leave this one and this one here, and I'm going to put my little magnet on them so I know that those are in the right place. All right, and I'm just going to trim this end, and we're going to hope for the best because I did it a little bit wrong. So now I can double check my measurement here, and I check my measurement there. Okay, and I'm going to put this here. So this outside edge here is still a little bit longer than it needs to be. All right, I'm going to move that over, put that there. I'm going to do the same thing on this end. Okay, I can kind of do some double checking on measurements, make sure I'm right. All right, so then we're going to put that one up here. Okay, so this is how my blocks are going to go. All right, and then we're going to put our middle pieces in here. So these are going to be in here. These are slightly longer than they need to be, and that is fine because we're going to sew these together in rows in just a bit. All right, so I'm going to put these here, this here. This one is going to go here. All right, and then these are going to go here, but we're going to trim those down in just a second when we get this part made. All right, so this part is a paper piece section. It's just a square and a square. Your pattern will come with 3 variations that you can choose from, so you can make it so that it's very layered. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 fabrics that you'll use for that one. You could do it so it's a big section. So if you had something that you really want to fussy cut and put in here, you can absolutely do that. I'm going to do this one here where I'll have a piece in the middle that I fussy cut and then 2 layers out. Okay, so you have your options of which ones you want to do. This is the one I'm going to do. And so I've got it already copied out onto my newsprint. And now I'm just going to put that together. So we'll put this together and then we'll put the whole block together. I'm going to scoot these over so I have a little bit of workspace here. But I can keep it together in a way that I can see what's happening. All right, so I'm going to keep those there. Now I'm going to put this together. So this was the piece that I have for my center. I'm going to fold these lines just like I normally do for paper piecing. And then I'm going to get it so that that star is centered on there as well as I can. All right, so now here's where my star needs to go. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on there, get that to stick in the right place. And now I'm going to fold this in half so I can kind of see it a little bit better about where the half is. Okay, that seems pretty good. All right, so now I've got that piece on and I can put on my second piece. I'm going to fold this back. Oops. Trim off this edge, and then I'll add my second piece. This second row here is going to be this yellow in honor of the cheese that Wisconsin is so famous for. And now I'm going to sew this. I'm going to do the whole thing just like we do normally, and then I'll be back and we'll finish this up. All right, so I've got my foot changed so I can see what I'm doing there. My fabric is still in the right place. I'm going to tuck it under there. I'm going to bring my stitch length down to a 1.6 and stitch right across this little line. Roll it up. We'll do the same thing to the other side. All right, now we can trim it up from the other side. So I'm going to make sure that I've got actually 1/4 inch past that stitching line. Make sure that this is a nice square corner. And again, matching it up. And then when I trim these two sides, I'm going to double check it with the size that's in the pattern to make sure it's coming out right. And then we can trim that. All right, so now we have a little center block. So that center block is going to go here. So these pieces are cut too big, and it's really just to give us a little bit of extra. So we're going to fold these over, and I'm going to sew on both sides, press it, and then I'm going to trim this off so it's nice and straight. All right, I'm actually going to press this up just a little bit so we've got lots of room there. All right, so now I'm going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to follow this line as well as the 1/4 inch on my foot. All right, so as I was doing this, I felt my stitches kind of move over as I went over this big hump. So I'm going to try it again. I'm just going to start back here and just keep a tighter grip on it as it goes over this and make sure it hits my line. There we go. All right, now I'll do the same thing with this one. All right. Make sure my edges stay lined up and that I'm not sewing that one down. All right, so before I do any trimming of this, I am going to take out all of the paper because the paper affects how it's going to lay. We want to make sure that I get that all out. Throw this into my little scrap bin here. All right, so now we've got this piece. I'm going to go ahead and press this really quick and then we'll trim it up. All right, I'm going to take this, trim it up. You may have a little less to trim than I do. Okay, I'm just going to trim it right along the top of that block. I'll flip it around, trim it right across the bottom, and again, making sure that my edge here stays even and that my measurement here stays the same all the way across. All right, throw that away. And now we've got our center strip. So the next thing we're going to do is sew these together, and then we'll be able to trim up this bottom on both of these. So make sure that this all matches. This is going to nest the same way that we did the nesting on here. So I'm going to put these two together, and I'm going to nest these two seams as we go. So I'm going to start, get up to here, finagle things, and make sure that they match. Okay, I'm going to start on this side so I can see that blue underneath and make sure that it's where I want it to be. Okay. And I'm just using the line on my machine now for my 1/4 inch. Now let me put my stitch up just a little bit too. So once I get it here, then I can kind of refinagle, push things around, make it flat. And these aren't going to match because that middle one isn't trimmed yet. All right, so we've got that one sewn on. nest there really nicely. So let's go ahead and sew this one on. I'll start with the white on top. I back stitch just a little bit there. I didn't get quite close enough to the edge. This. And to hold this a little bit better as I get close to this, there's a lot to hang on to. So I'm going to use my stiletto and really keep things where I want them to be. All right, put that one there. We'll sew this one together. All right, so now we've got our rows. Clean up my mess just a little bit here. So we've got our rows. This one's ready to go. I'm going to press these ones. We want these again to nest, or to spin. So I'm going to open that up here. Give it a little finger press. Okay. All right, we'll do the same thing with this one, and then I'm going to press them with the iron. Get it really nice and flat. Okay, let me go do that. All right, so here are those strips, and then I'm going to straighten these up. So I'm just going to trim up this side as well. Okay, and that way we still have some to trim on the outside if we need it. Just to give us that little bit of extra wiggle room that we all find so helpful. So now these strips are going to get sewn together. And again, we're going to get our seams together, but because of the way that this has happened, we end up, because of the twisting of the seams, we end up with these going the wrong direction. So I'm going to press these. So this center here, I'm going to go ahead and press this so I can nest them, because you can see they don't really want to nest right now. And because I've got a lot of seams already on this side with the white, the seam allowance is showing over here, I'm just going to press it over. I'm just going to do that with my roller right now. So it'll kind of stay, and then I'll give it a good press after. All right, but let's get those nested. And I am going to pin it this time because those are going to want to move on me. So stick a little pin in here and here. And these are not going to, well, I guess we could. I was going to say they're not going to be able to because we've got a lot of thickness right here, but we might be able to do that. I'm going to give it a try. All right. So I'm just kind of nudging these together, working them with my fingers until they touch. Okay. So we'll do the same thing here. I'll push that over. I'll get those to stick together. Okay, and this is that same thing. I'm actually going to use the roller here, the seam roller, because it will make it stay just a little bit better. All right, so nudging those. And those. Okay, and I am going to put one final little pin here at the end so that it doesn't budge on me. So let's go sew this. All right, that worked pretty well to nest though. So I'm gonna take this back over to the iron and press these in, and then the other side will be much easier. All right, let's do the next row. So we're gonna do the same, just nesting these together and then pinning them in place. All right, so again, we're going to twist these little seams, get them to lay nice and flat. Okay. It's really fun how many little four patches we get on the back of this. All right. All right, now I want to press this really well. So I'm going to bring the ironing back over and show you how to press it. All right, so these sides here we've already pressed. I'm going to kind of give it a little bit of a pull as I press these down. It's just the tiniest little bit. Okay. So I'm going to press these, press this. Just a tiniest little bit of tug, and it's really just to make sure that those stay straight. Now I can turn it over, give it another little press. Okay. And I'm going to give it another spritz of the quilting and crafting spray. This is what I use. And so I'm going to give it a little spritz. And I want to do this to try to get it to be nice and straight. So I want these sides to be really straight. Okay. And kind of manipulate things just a little bit with the spray and an iron. All right, pretty happy with how my seams have nested. So let's trim that up. So I'm going to use the same measurements we did before. Kind of lift this. Make things straight. Trim that side up. All right, and then I'm going to trim this bottom. This is the one that this top, whichever side. So this is the one that I trimmed earlier. So I'm going to make sure that that's right. Okay, kind of give things a little bit of a pull and make sure that it matches here, which it does. So I'm going to trim that off. Now I'll make sure and trim it to the size of the block. Let me use my actual board here to measure this. Get it nice and even, cut off that raggedy little edge right there. So having those little bits to trim it up is super helpful. All right, and now I'll do it this way. And again, I'm going to kind of just be triple checking things and making sure that they are lined up the way they're supposed to be. So again, this is where we trimmed. Okay. You can double check here on my board, make sure it's the right length. All right. And there we've got our Wisconsin cheese box block.